Imagine a video game where taking out an enemy tank isn't just about tactical advantage, it's worth 40 points. Destroy a mobile rocket system? That'll get you 50. Each enemy soldier eliminated gets you 6 points in your unit's game currency account, which can be later spent for equipment upgrades and restocking. Now imagine it's not a game, but real life. This is Ukraine's gamified approach to drone warfare. Each military drone squad is quite literally scoring points for kills and using them to purchase the exact equipment they need for their specific battle space. While it might sound silly and macabre, it's actually one of Ukraine's most innovative military adaptations to Russia's practically relentless advance over the past 40 months of war. And it's working with startling effectiveness. So let's dig into how Ukraine went from having practically negligible battlefield drones to using them to spur their troops to chase high scores. Mikhail Fedorov, Ukraine's Minister of Digital Transformation, launched what he calls the Army of Drones bonus program, a system that assigns specific point values to various types of confirmed kills on the battlefield. These aren't arbitrary numbers, but carefully calibrated incentives designed to direct Ukraine's limited drone resources exactly where they'll have the greatest impact. The point system is remarkably straightforward: 6 points for eliminating an enemy soldier, 20 points for damaging a tank, 40 points for destroying a tank, up to 50 points for destroying a mobile rocket system, depending on the caliber. What makes the system particularly ingenious is its flexibility, as Fedorov himself explained. For example, we have increased the number of points for infantry elimination from 2 to 6, and that doubled the number of destroyed enemies in 1 month. Think about the implications of that statement. By simply adjusting the point value of different targets, Ukrainian leadership can effectively redirect their drone operators' focus toward whatever threat is most pressing at any given moment along the 600-mile front line. Is a sector experiencing heavy MLRS fire? Increase the points for taking out rocket systems. Need to blunt an infantry assault? Boost the infantry elimination value. The gamified system creates a responsive targeting regime that effectively adapts to battlefield conditions in near real time without requiring direct orders from above. All the decision-making is done periodically and can be applied immediately as well as across the entire drone operating force. Where the system truly becomes revolutionary is in what happens after units accumulate these points. Rather than just creating a leaderboard for bragging rights, Ukraine has integrated the scoring system with an online marketplace called Brave One, essentially creating what Ukrainian officials described as Amazon for the military. Through this digital marketplace, units convert their battle-earned points directly into new equipment. The selection is impressively vast and includes items such as various drone types, electronic warfare systems, AI modules, parts, and other specialized equipment. Of course, for the drone operator squads, drones and supporting systems will likely be center stage. As such, the famous Vampire drone costs 43 points. The relatively low price means a single unit could earn enough points for a new one by destroying a mobile rocket system and eliminating just one enemy soldier. The marketplace combined with the incentive system essentially creates a positive feedback loop. When a unit destroys an enemy and verifies the kill via first-person drone or camera footage, they get points. With those points, they can buy more drones, which can be used to score more kills, get more points, and so on. What makes this marketplace approach truly significant is how it circumvents traditional military procurement bureaucracy. Instead of equipment allocations being determined centrally and distributed evenly or unevenly across the front, the most effective units naturally receive more equipment, which they can select based on their specific tactical needs. This allows them to further improve their hit rates or specialize for a select range of targets or operations, which would theoretically make them even more effective in the long run. Some units might operate in areas where nighttime operations are crucial, so they might prioritize thermal-capable drones. Others might face dense Russian electronic warfare and require specialized counter-EW equipment. The Brave One system allows these decisions to be made at the lowest possible level by the operators themselves. Take the example of one of Ukraine's elite drone units, the famous Magyar's Birds. According to reports, this single unit has accumulated over 16,298 points, enough to purchase 500 daytime FPV drones, 500 nighttime-capable drones, 100 Vampire drones, and 40 reconnaissance drones, according to Fedorov's estimates of the point system at the time, which was in late April. That's an arsenal tailored precisely to the squad's operational needs, delivered to the units that have proven they can use it effectively. With these two systems in place, squads have a few different paths when it comes to performing offensive or defensive operations. If the squad's operators are top-notch, they might be getting self-sufficient to replace the drones they lose during missions, while also allowing them to stock up on choice upgrades. Some drone operators might decide on bold tactics, using drones solely to target high-point goals in an effort to streamline how many drones they can use at any given time and maximize the potential gain. Alternatively, some squads might decide to go for the opposite approach, gunning for lower-point targets to get a steady stream of points and hopefully get much-needed equipment to broaden their horizons. But this is the front end of the system, with the back end being Ukraine's drone program, which has been churning out drones for years. This is due to a diversified supply chain that combines domestic production, international donations, and commercial off-the-shelf purchases, and the domestic industry in particular is one that has practically spawned from nothing. Ivan Havriluk, first Deputy Minister of Defense, has stated in an interview that Ukraine has managed to produce over 200,000 drones per month, with the goal of 2.5 to 3 million units produced throughout 2025. While most are simple FPV or first-person view kamikaze drones, Ukraine has developed increasingly sophisticated models including the Vampire drone and the Baba Yaga bomber drone that can carry heavier payloads. This production rate is a tenfold increase from the estimates from early 2024, which suggested a measly 20,000 drones produced per month. Ukrainian companies like Eskadrone, UA Dynamics, and UKR Spec Systems have scaled up from small workshops to significant manufacturing operations. For example, out of these three companies, only one, UKR Spec Systems, existed before 2022, and even that one was founded in 2014, the same year that Russia annexed Crimea and effectively escalated the Russia-Ukraine conflict into something resembling a small-scale Cold War. And there were many more similar companies that existed on such a small scale they were footnotes in the drone industry before the war, or ones that simply got created as a direct result of it. And even then, Ukraine is also getting vital support from NATO allies in the drone department. The United States has provided hundreds of Switchblade loitering munitions and Phoenix Ghost drones developed specifically for Ukrainian requirements. European partners have contributed various systems, with Poland emerging as a significant production hub for drones going straight from the manufacturing line to Ukraine. But perhaps the most interesting is how commercial technology has been adapted. Standard consumer drones from companies like DJI have been modified for military applications, while 3D printing allows for rapid prototyping and production of custom parts. This combination of commercial technology with military applications has created a uniquely accessible drone program. The Brave One marketplace brings all these sources together, allowing units to select exactly what works best for their operational environment. Crucially, the marketplace includes a review system where operators can rate equipment based on real battlefield performance. This creates a feedback loop that quickly identifies the most effective systems and weeds out those that underperform. According to the press report from Politico, soldiers will also be able to leave reviews on the site to guide future purchases. This might seem like a small detail, but it represents a fundamental shift in military procurement. It lets frontline operators directly influence equipment selection rather than decisions being made by distant procurement officers. This democratization in drone operations is practically the polar opposite of Russia's highly centralized military doctrine, which can shed light on why Ukraine has opted for this course of action in the first place. But why has Ukraine invested so heavily in this drone ecosystem and announced its success to the world at any given opportunity? The answer lies in simple mathematics. Ukraine cannot match Russia's numerical advantage in conventional forces. With a population less than a third of Russia's, 40 million versus 140 million, Ukraine faced an inherent disadvantage in manpower from day one. Recent reporting from the Kyiv Independent highlights the desperate race to train more soldiers as Ukraine struggles to maintain adequate force levels against Russia's much larger military. When Russia started the invasion, it had an estimated 900,000 active troops, military and paramilitary, deployed across the country, with around 300,000 of them near Ukraine's borders. In contrast, Ukraine had around 150,000 active troops defending it. 3 years into the war, there were over 100,000 confirmed Russian soldier deaths and an estimated 980,000 total casualties. And yet Russia's active forces are reported to be in the range of 1.2 to 1.5 million, 600,000 of which were deployed to Ukraine. On the other hand, Ukraine's active troop size skyrocketed to around 900,000, according to a statement from Zelensky in January 2025. Russia's ability to continuously mobilize new troops, even if poorly trained, creates pressure that Ukraine cannot counter through conventional means. This is evidenced by the differing approaches countries used for conscription. Ukraine was forced to heavily broaden the conscription effort, enacting wartime law that allowed it to call upon anyone from 18 to 16 years of age for service. On the other hand, all Russia had to do was change the maximum conscription age from 27 to 30. This resulted in a 2025 estimate of 160,000 new conscripts for the Russian military, which was a fraction of the available population that the country could draw from. The disparity in equipment follows similar patterns. Despite substantial Western military aid, Ukraine cannot match Russia's ability to produce artillery shells, tanks, and armored vehicles at scale. In fact, it's estimated that Russia outproduces the entirety of NATO for artillery munitions, and that's not counting the shells that North Korea has also been exporting to Russia. The country has also been able to regenerate significant portions of its losses by bringing mothballed Soviet-era equipment back into service. One of the key developments here is Russia's use of glide bombs. The country is relying on its extensive stockpile of Soviet-era FABs, Russian acronym for High Explosive Aviation Bomb, which are unguided bombs that use traditional bombers for deployment. Then the country is strapping guidance and aerodynamic kits to the bombs, which cost around $20,000 to $30,000 and can produce more than 100 of them per day, with an estimate of around 22,000 per year. The only assessment of Russia's stockpiles so far is vast, and reports from 2024 suggest that the country is even mass-producing higher-yield bombs to this day, with the fabled Fab 3000, with 6,000 pounds of explosive, being produced on a larger scale than before. But even the Fab 500, which has around 1,100 pounds of explosive, can be deadly, and that model has also been suggested to have been mass-produced. And it's not just long-range and expendable munitions that Russia has an advantage in. Pre-war estimates suggest Russia had around 12,000 tanks at its disposal. Ukraine's Ministry of Defense suggests that it's destroyed or damaged 10,800 tanks throughout the war, and yet Russia doesn't seem to be running out of tanks anytime soon, even though there are consistent reports of tanks being hit every day. Against this backdrop, Ukraine's drone program represents a classic asymmetric response, using technological advantage to offset numerical disadvantage. A single operator with an FPV drone costing a few $100s can destroy a Russian tank worth millions. The economics alone are overwhelmingly in Ukraine's favor. The gamification system enhances this advantage by ensuring drones go to the units that can use them most effectively, rather than distributing limited resources evenly across the front, which would inevitably mean some would be underutilized. The point system creates a natural meritocracy that maximizes impact. According to the Politico report, about 90% of drone units have scored points through the system, showing widespread adoption. More impressively, units are scoring so many hits that the government has had to revamp logistics to get new drones to high-performing units fast enough to meet demand. Therefore, the current goal is to deliver new equipment within 1 week of it being purchased through the point system. And the strategic impact of Ukraine's drone program extends far beyond tactical victories. By embracing this technology at scale, Ukraine has fundamentally changed the nature of the conflict in several ways. First, drones have erased Russia's traditional advantage in artillery. Where Russian forces could previously bombard Ukrainian positions from relative safety, drone surveillance now makes those artillery positions vulnerable to counterfire or direct drone attacks. This has forced Russian artillery to operate from greater distances, reducing their accuracy and effectiveness, effectively wasting the 3 million round production potential of the country. Second, drones have dramatically increased the cost of offensive operations for Russia. Even fully armored advances now face a constant threat from above, with no Russian tanks being exempt from drones dropping munitions on the tank's less armored top surface. One of the most common attempts to foil this tactic has been to weld metal cages and shields to the tank, but it has proven largely ineffective while also reducing mobility to boot. Third, Ukraine's drone program has created an unprecedented level of battlefield transparency. Every successful strike must be documented with video evidence to qualify for points, creating a massive database of confirmed battle damage assessments. This information feeds into Ukraine's Delta situational awareness system, giving commanders real-time intelligence on Russian losses and positions. The statistics surrounding Ukraine's drone program are staggering. While exact figures remain classified, Ukrainian officials have claimed their forces conduct hundreds of drone strikes daily. Success rates vary by drone type, but FPV drones are estimated to have a sub-50% success rate. Despite that, they accounted for roughly 65% of destroyed tanks throughout the conflict, indicating the sheer necessity of the system. The sub-50% success rate is a particularly sore point for Ukrainian operators. Statistics posted by Magyar's Birds indicate that it takes between 2.2 and 7.1 sorties to destroy a target, with the higher number indicating a structure or heavily armored vehicle. Many of the unsuccessful drones end up falling victim to Russian electronic warfare or simple mechanical failures. However, the economics remain favorable. Even if 3 or 4 drones are lost for every successful strike, the cost-exchange ratio still heavily favors Ukraine when targeting high-value Russian equipment. While the direct impact on Russian forces is the most obvious benefit of Ukraine's system, there are several less visible advantages that may prove equally important in the long run. The first is morale. By creating tangible, measurable success metrics, the point system gives Ukrainian operators a sense of progress that might otherwise be difficult to perceive in a grinding war of attrition. The competitive element between units drives performance while creating a sense of agency among operators. Second is the rapid identification of talent. The point system quickly reveals which operators and units demonstrate the highest skill levels, allowing Ukraine to identify natural talents who can then train others or be assigned to the most critical operations. Third is the unprecedented collection of battlefield data. Because every point-earning strike must be documented with video evidence, Ukraine is building what may be the most comprehensive database of combat drone operations in military history. This information will likely influence drone warfare doctrine for decades to come. Finally, the system creates a culture of innovation at the tactical level. When operators know their ideas and methods can translate directly into points and equipment, they have every incentive to develop new tactics and approaches. This bottom-up innovation has repeatedly allowed Ukrainian forces to stay ahead of Russian countermeasures. On the flip side, the gamification of warfare raises obvious ethical questions. By assigning point values to human lives, even if they are the enemy combatants and pose a direct threat to the country, the system can seem to trivialize the inherent deadliness and seriousness of war. Some critics have argued that such systems risk dehumanizing the enemy and potentially lowering the psychological barriers to lethal force. The counter to that logic is that war is inherently dehumanizing and that the system simply acknowledges the reality that some targets have greater strategic value than others. For example, some might question that if Russia cared about its soldiers, it wouldn't have kept the war running until the point where it reached nearly 1 million casualties. The point values reflect military necessity rather than any judgment about human worth. Moreover, the drone program could reduce civilian casualties compared to traditional artillery or airstrikes. The precision of drone strikes, particularly when conducted by experienced operators, allows for more discriminate targeting that minimizes collateral damage. What seems clear is that gamified warfare systems are likely here to stay, regardless of the ethical debates. The tactical and strategic advantages they provide are simply too significant to ignore, especially for forces facing numerical disadvantages like Ukraine. Remember, just adjusting the points for a single type of target can lead to skyrocketing hit rates within a month. And while the gamification system might be controversial, it's highly likely that NATO and the rest of the world are taking notes. The combination of technological innovation and organizational adaptation represented by the point system and Brave One marketplace could easily be adapted by Western countries and rolled out as needed, as there's nothing stopping Germany, Poland, or even the US from developing similar technology. After all, NATO has been steadily supporting Ukraine with drones since the start of the war, giving the country a baseline stock of high-performance military drones, not ones adapted from commercial models either, to work toward and implement into the marketplace. And for NATO, the war in Ukraine is effectively an investment into its own future. By concentrating its forces on a single country's military, NATO can funnel its funds directly into countering Russia's ambitions without becoming actively involved in the conflict or risking its own soldiers' lives in the process. Furthermore, NATO can leverage the emerging technologies and tactics in Ukraine to revamp its own national defense models and military-industrial complexes. This is especially helped by the alliance conveniently shedding away its stock of 20th-century equipment supply, many of which came from the Soviet Union itself or Warsaw Pact countries. Other systems, like the donated F-16s, were already approaching decommission, allowing the countries that donated them, the Netherlands, Denmark, and Belgium, to write them off amid orders for modern alternatives. Essentially, what NATO has managed to do is make Ukraine into a territorial proxy between itself and Russia. Regardless of the outcome of the war, the alliance will end up positioned stronger through future-oriented military policies. But going back to Ukraine and its current efforts, the gamification is just the latest in the line of doctrine overhauls for modern warfare. The war in Ukraine has so far showcased that fighter jets and tanks might no longer be the be-all and end-all metrics by which militaries might be compared, and that drones and technology integration, as well as electronic warfare capabilities, might determine the winners of future wars. Additionally, the technology-driven battlefield could throw infantry importance to the sidelines completely, as evidenced by Russia steadily accumulating losses despite a significant initial advantage. Ultimately, Ukraine is fighting for its very existence, and through that lens, any advantage, no matter how controversial, dehumanizing, or contrary to the established systems, might be worth pursuing. But what do you think? What is the end game of gamifying war with drone operations? Let us know in the comments, and thank you, as always, for watching.